Welcome to Conversations. I'm Suresh Kochatal. What makes Dr. Subramaniam Jaishankar a rock star? He's a star attraction wherever he goes. And there's no getting away from the fact Dr. S. Jaishankar, when it comes to speaking, has a mind of his own. One thing is very clear, and he makes it very clear. He speaks after a great deal of thought. He pauses, and the pauses are measured. He clicks his words, and of course, making it look as if he's stammering, and then delivers them with a knockout punch.
Your question, do we have multiple options? Answer is yes. Is that a problem? Why should it be a problem? If I'm smart enough to have multiple options, you should be admiring me. You shouldn't be criticizing. Now, is that a problem for other people? I don't think so. I don't think so, certainly in this case and in that case, because look, we try to explain what are the different pulls and pressures which countries have. And it's very hard to have a unidimensional relationship. Now, again, different countries and different relationships have different histories. If I were to look, say, between the US and Germany, it is rooted, there's an alliance nature to it. There's a certain history on which that relationship is grounded. In our case, it's very different. So I don't want you to even inadvertently give the impression that we are purely and unsentimentally transactional. We are not. We get along with people, we believe in things, we share things, we agree on some things, but there are times when when you're located in different places, have different levels of development, different experiences. All of that gets into it. So life is complicated, life is differentiated, and I think it's very important today not to reduce the entire complexity of our world into very sweeping propositions. Yeah. I think that era is today behind us. Yeah. Yeah. So I agree very much with what Tony said, which is good partners provide choices. Smart partners take some of those choices. But sometimes there will be choices on which you say, well, I think I'll pass up on that one.
Dr. Jaishankar knows that as a foreign minister, every word what he says will be analyzed threadbare. Not just within India, but even outside. Any missteps in the foreign policy will be a disaster, allowing opposition parties to India to go for his jugular. Look at how Dr. Jaishankar handled the Maldivian issue, meeting President Musi and getting the State Bank of India to roll over a 50 billion loan. Now, the Maldivians are pleading with India to rescue them from a default. Remember how India helped Sri Lanka out when the island nation was facing a huge financial crisis. Later, when things stabilized, the Sri Lankan government acknowledged that India had a big role tied over that massive crisis. Then there's the latest one on BRICS. Why did India get into BRICS? Why don't Jaishankar ask them, let us get into G7? And so, since they didn't allow us, we formed our own group. He then talked about Quad with countries from different corners of the world.
I think it's important to go back to how it began. The BRICS started in an era where Western dominance was very strong. The premier gathering of the world was the G7. And you had a number of significant powers in the world who felt that, well, they were not part of the G7, but maybe they also brought value to the table by sitting and discussing with others. So in a sense, you had a collection of these countries. It was originally 4. South Africa joined later. If you look at it, it's a very interesting group because it's geographically as disparate as it can be. Yet it is bound by the fact that these discussions we've had over a decade and a half have been very useful for all of us. Now, like any product, you test it in the market at some point. We tested it last year and asked people, so how many of you want to join BRICS? And we got almost 30 countries who were willing to join BRICS. So clearly, if 30 countries saw value in it, there must be something good we've done. So I think it's important today to make a distinction between being non-West and anti-West. Mm-hmm. I would certainly characterize India as a country which is non-West, but which has an extremely strong relationship with Western countries, getting better by the day. Not everybody else necessarily in that grouping might qualify for that description, but the contribution the BRICS has made, if one looks at the G7 and how it evolved into the G20, I think in a way, those additional 13 members who came into its bigger grouping, 5 of them are BRICS members. The fact that there was another group which was meeting regularly and discussing and debating, I think certainly was an input into the expansion of the G7 into the G20. So I think we did a service to the world.
Now, when a reporter asked him how India would deal with Bangladesh's request to extradite Sheikh Hasina, Dr. Jaishankar replied very calmly that India would deal with the new government in the Dhaka on its own terms. The latest being his statement at the Geneva Center for Security Policy, where he said that India had sorted out 75% of its problems along the border with China. Look who said this. Not Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi, but Dr. Jaishankar.
Those negotiations are going on. We made some progress. I would say roughly, you can say about 75% of the disengagement problems are sorted out. We still have some things to do. But there's a bigger issue that, if both of us have brought forces close up, and in that sense, there's the level of militarization of the border has increased. How does one deal with it? I think we have to deal with it.
One of his best and possibly most impactful of statements in various forums was about justifying why India bought the Russian oil. Specifically at GlobeSec 2022, Bratislava Forum, Dr. Jaishankar also did not shy away from stating the double standards and showing the double standards of Western countries, who, while imposing sanctions on Russia and Russian oil, did their own business with Russia. In fact, Dr. Jaishankar said, how they planned the sanctions was in a way that the Western countries won't see a traumatic effect on their economy, while not giving the same freedom to other countries like India.
In terms of our oil purchases, we don't send people out there saying go buy Russian oil. We send people out there saying go buy oil. Now, you buy the best oil you can in the market. So I don't think I would attach a political messaging to that.
West seems to be quite vociferous in trying to curtail funding for the war in Ukraine, whereas by purchasing this oil for national interest, India is being asked, are you funding this war?
So, look, I don't want to sound argumentative, but then tell me if buying Russian gas is not funding the war? Why is it's only Indian money and oil coming to India which funds, but it's not gas coming to Europe which funds? Look, somewhere, let's be a little even-handed out here. If countries in Europe and the West and the United States are so concerned, why don't they allow Iranian oil to come into the market? Why don't they allow Venezuelan oil to come into the market? They've squeezed every other source of oil we have and then say, okay guys, you must not go into the market and get the best deal for your people. I don't think that's a very fair approach.
With India counting on global support for in its struggle with China, its issues with China? How do you think you'll be trusted by others after that? Why do you think anyone will help Delhi after you didn't help others over Ukraine?
It's an interesting question which you might, I mean, not you meaning you personally, but people might want to ask themselves, because if I were to take Europe collectively, which has been singularly silent on many things which were happening, for example, in Asia, you could ask, why would anybody in Asia trust Europe on anything at all? Today, Europe is buying oil. Europe is buying gas. I just read the new package of sanctions. Now, the package is designed in a way in which consideration has been given to the welfare of the population. So, pipelines have a certain carve-out. And timelines have been given. It's not like tomorrow morning everything's going to be cut off. So, people need to understand, if you can be considerate of yourself, surely you can be considerate of other people. So, if Europe says, look, we have to manage it in a way in which its impact on my economy is not traumatic, that freedom or that choice should exist for other people as well. Europe has to grow out of the mindset that Europe's problems are the world's problems, but the world's problems are not Europe's problems. That if it is you, it's yours. If it is me, it's ours.
Later, when American media questioned India's purchase of crude oil from Russia, Dr. Jaishankar hit back in style, saying that the US should advise the same to its European allies. If you're looking at energy purchases from Russia, said Dr. Jaishankar, I would suggest your attention should be on Europe. We buy the same energy necessary for our energy security. But I suspect at the other figures, and when I look at them, our purchases, that is India's purchases, for a month would be less than what Europe does in an afternoon. Classic Jaishankar. While defending India's decisions to look for energy deals for its energy requirements, Dr. Jaishankar said, when the oil prices go up, it's natural for countries to go out and look in the market and look for what is good deal for their country and for the people. And he said, I'm pretty sure that if we wait for 2 or 3 months and actually look at who are the big buyers of Russian oil and gas, then Dr. Jaishankar said he suspects that the list would be not too different from what it used to be before. And he made it very clear that India won't feature in the top 10 of the list of those who are buying Russian oil and gas now. Later, in a response to a question by a Pakistani journalist whether there could be talks between India and Pakistan on combating the menace of terrorism, Dr. Jaishankar said, victims of terrorism do not sit together with the perpetrators of terrorism and discuss terrorism. At the UN Security Council stakeout, Dr. Jaishankar was addressing, and there was a question from a Pakistani journalist how Southeast Asia was going to see terrorism disseminating from New Delhi, Kabul, and Pakistan. Dr. Jaishankar's stern reply went viral again. You know, he said, you're asking the wrong minister when you say this. How long will we do this? Because it's ministers from Pakistan who will tell you how long Pakistan intends to practice terrorism. Classic vintage Jaishankar. Dr. S. Jaishankar also launched a sketching attack on Bilawal Bhutto Zardari, saying that as a promoter, justifier, and a spokesperson of the terrorism industry, his position as a Pakistani on the menace was called out at the SCO meeting. In a savage jibe at Pakistan, Dr. Jaishankar said Pakistan's credibility in dealing with terrorism is depleting faster than their forex reserves. What else one can say? Absolutely joyful to listen to Dr. Jaishankar. Politicians across the world and people from many countries are in admiration of Dr. Jaishankar for his forthright comments. You should go to YouTube and read the comments to his videos.
There is a linkage today which is being made. A linkage between China and India and what's happening in Ukraine. So come on, guys. China and India happened way before anything happened in Ukraine. We have a difficult relationship with China. We're perfectly capable of managing it. It's if I get global understanding and support, obviously it is of help to me. But this idea that I do a transaction, that I come in one conflict because it will help me in conflict too, that's not how the world works. A lot of our problems in China have nothing to do with Ukraine, have nothing to do with Russia. They predate it.
Jaishankar, there will always be two axes at this point. I think it's an understood, accepted fact that you have the West, US-led, you have China as the next potential axis. Where does India fit into this? But are you planning to not pick a side?
No, I'm sorry. That is exactly where I disagree with you. This is the construct you are trying to impose on me, and I don't accept it. I mean, I don't think it's necessary for me to join this axis or not, and if I'm not joining this, I must be with the other one. I don't accept that. I mean, I think I'm 1/5 of the world's population. I am today the 5th or 6th largest economy in the world. I mean, forget the history, civilization bit, everybody knows that. But I think I'm entitled to have my own side. I'm entitled to weigh my own interests, make my own choices. And my choices will not be cynical and transactional, but they will be a balance of my values and my interests. There is no country in the world which disregards its interests. The wheat was actually being stocked for being traded. So in a way, our goodwill was being used for speculation. Mm-hmm. So we had to do something to stop that, because it was also impacting us at home. Our prices were going up. So I want to be very clear what we have done. We have actually said, look, we're not going to give speculators an open access to the Indian market, so that the Indian customer and the LDCs of the world get the short end of that. Yeah. And preventing a diversion to high-income countries with a greater possibility to buy, because what we saw happen with the vaccines, we don't want to see happen with the wheat, which was the rich people got vaccinated and the poor were left to God. And
politicians across the world and people from many countries are in admiration of Dr. Jaishankar for his forthright comments. You should go to YouTube and read the comments to his videos. In fact, these videos are laced with sarcasm and seriousness by Dr. Jaishankar. It's not often that you get people like him, career diplomats as ministers, and the way he pitches for a country that he stands for, the Bharat, calling a spade a spade. Thank you for watching. Jai Hind.